Looking at the equipment that you're going to need to do some of the testing that we're going to cover today, I have a power port, the 12-volt power port. You normally see these in cars, but they also have them on boats. And you can plug in a variety of things like air pumps, charging cables for things like VHF radios. A lot of devices still support this 12-volt power port. You're going to need some cable. We're going to use that to splice onto this, the 12-volt power port, so we can test that. Now I use these are wire strippers. I'm kind of lazy. You can use the standard wire strippers. This tends to work pretty well for me. You can get them pretty cheap at Harbor Freight. You're going to need a 12-volt battery. Now this battery here, you'll notice is much smaller. I tend to take this battery with me on the kayak because I don't feel like lugging around one of the giant car batteries. Are you going to get the same number of hours out of something like this? No. But if you're only going out for a couple of hours, I'm not lugging around a giant 12-volt battery to go out for a couple hours. I'll take this. But what you're also going to need, you can see here, it's a 2-prong port. You're going to need this patch cable that screws into there. And then what I've done is I've taken some of these Wago clips, just the 2s, and put one on the red wire and put one on the black wire. And you'll see whenever we start testing everything, all we have to do on these Wagos is you put the wire in there, flip this switch down, and you're ready to go. Could you use some of these wire nuts like this? Sure. But what I find is when I'm doing testing and moving things from the boat back to the house, especially in wintertime or with the kayak, I'm taking them off, and I want to do an update on this, using wire nuts twists the wires, and after a while, they can get damaged and you have to keep snipping it back. Using these Wagos, it doesn't do any damage to the cable, and you can do it as many times as you want. You're going to need a knife. I use my pocket knife. I did a review on this if you want to check out the video. We're going to use this to splice this in. You're also going to need a spare cable for whatever electronics you want to test. First thing we're going to do is we're going to prepare the wire. So I don't need a really long piece like this. I'm just going to take, 12 inches or so. We're going to cut that. Set that aside. Now we got a 12-inch piece of wire. On each end, we're going to take a small knife and we're going to make a slit down each of the sides like this. You want to try to be in the middle as much as you can. You're going to split those wires down the middle. Don't worry about cutting them too much. The knife will fit in between there. You don't have to push too hard. And then once you get some wire exposed like this, just take your knife, put it in there, cut off that tag end. Do the same on the other side. Again, we're just creating a patch cable here that's going to connect to this, to the battery. So the same thing on the other side. Create your tag end. Put your knife underneath there. And that's it. Now you got your simple patch cable. The next step here is to prepare the wires. With that, we're going to use the wire stripper. Now I already have this set in here. There's a dial here. You can set how deep you want it to be. And so you just put this in there, and you got to be real decisive about it. Don't try to squeeze it real slow because it'll just stretch the plastic shielding. So put it under there, and then a quick stroke, and it'll pull that right off. You can see we've got our wires that are ready. Now what I like to do, because marine wire is typically what's called tinned, they put tin on each of the strands. Now unlike home wiring, marine wire is stranded. So you can see here that there's strands of wire and each of it's tinned. Now the reason you want tinned is because On the marine side, it'll keep it from corroding and rusting. Not that copper wire does that, but it can degrade if it's not tinned. Normally, if you were making these connections in a marine environment, you would solder these together. I know there's a big debate about, do I solder it? Do I crimp it? How does it work? Do I use heat shrink? We can get into that in another video. But just testing these at home, what I tend to do is just twist the wires, the strands a bit, just to give them a little bit more durability. You don't need a whole lot, but it does help with the wear and tear of putting them in and out of the Wago clips. Another piece of equipment that you're going to need is some clips. Now, these clips will attach, in this case, onto the plug. So once you put the wire on this side, you can then attach them like so. But it also makes it easy to get these on and off. This is just testing this 12-volt plug. Once we get this wired onto here, we can use the wiring harness for anything else that has a similar setup. Now, what has a similar setup to this? Well, the plug on trolling motors. So if you have a 12-volt trolling motor with a power port, you will then be able to use this to test out that power port as well. But today, we're just wiring this generic port. It doesn't matter which end of this cable you want to go with. What we're going to do is we're going to take this and you put it in. You can see it's a round slot in there. And you want to be careful, because this is another reason why we twisted this, because if you try to put that in there with all the strands sticking out, then it's just going to fray all over the place and you're not going to get a good connection. Just very carefully put this into the center there. Now, in this case, I have a crimping tool. So you can see there's different teeth on this crimping tool. We're going to use this one back here. The mistake a lot of people use is this one here that has kind of the tooth on it. If you use that, what'll happen is it'll split the plastic on this clip. That kind of defeats the point of these clips. These are actually the shrink versions of the clips. So if I had a heat gun, I would actually be able to shrink this end and make this a waterproof seal. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this in on the back. So we're going to use the back part of this. All right. So that's on the back part of the tooth. And we're just going to pinch it down. You don't have to get too crazy with it, but you can see that it pinched it down there. We'll do the same thing to the red wire, get it in the middle, go on the back part of it, pinch it down. There's our crimp, and we're all set. So there you have a patch cable now that you can use on connecting these kinds of devices that have the two prongs. The reason we created this patch cable with this plug is today we're going to test out my boat radio. And it comes with two types of charging stations. The first one is you just put this inside there and you plug it into the wall and it charges. Now that works. It also comes with, you take this cable out and you put this one in the back and you plug this into here. With this attached to the battery, it should also charge. Now what happened last year was I tried that exact process. I plugged this in into the port on my boat, put the radio in there, and it didn't charge. So today what we're testing is it the plug, the charger? And if this all works connected to this battery, then that means that the port on my boat, I got to look more into that once the weather breaks. So if I can get this working today with this port connected to this battery, I got to check the boat port once we get there. So let's get this all wired up and we'll start testing it out. So you'll notice that the black wire, the minus, goes to the casing, the red wire goes to the power. I have the red and black connected through the Wago clips to the battery. And so if we take this plug, you'll note there's a little red light right there. So if this all works, that red light should come on. There we go. So what that's telling me is I got to check the power port on my boat. If this is able to be charged, we're getting this light. I wasn't getting this light on my boat. So we'll have to make sure that we check that once we get the boat out of storage and see why we're not getting enough power to charge the base. So this was a successful test with this cable. Let's move over to the Lawrence and see if we can get that tested and powered up. Before we head over to the Lawrence to test that out, I wanted to show you why I use these types of clips. So now we're going to switch devices. We're going to switch from this over to the Lawrence. Using the Wago clips, I just have to pull this up on each side, pull it out. Now this is done. And then I take the patch cable, plug this end to the Wago clips, and we're ready to go. Now you'll notice this is a new patch cable. My old one, I lost it, so I had to get another one. This one here, I have to prepare the wires with the wire stripper. Same deal. Get in there, be quick about it. You'll see that the ends are stripped. Give them a little twist. And now this cable is ready to go for the Lawrence. First thing we got to do is take our Wago clips, match up the red with the red, black with the black. They're in there pretty good. Then you take the business end of this patch cable and you find the power port on your device. Now these devices have different setups. This one here you can see is a 2-pin setup. This one I got off of Amazon to support the 2-pin. So I put it in upside down. You'll feel it, and then it'll just push in. Boom, there you go. And if I did my homework right, should be able to power it on, and there you go. If you have to run any updates on this, or if you have to just want to learn it, worry about the different menus, the different configuration settings, you can do this all in your house. So here we are booted up. You'll see the screen. Now this isn't a touch screen, Lawrence, so you have to navigate with the buttons. But you can see here I can go to my charts, my sonar, down scan, my multi-view. These are the settings that I had set up. Now obviously you're not going to have your sonar and all that stuff. It's not connected, but you can go into all of your different charts, move around. This is some of the winter activities that I do to be able to test and keep things up to date, updating the maps, whatever you need to do on some of these removable devices. 12-volt battery gets it done with a little bit of extra patch cables, some Wago clips. It's a pretty easy project in the off months when you can't get to your boat. Hopefully you've learned something today about connecting different rigs, different testing setups to the 12-volt battery. You can test different electronics for your home, boat, car. You can use this for a bunch of different purposes. Same kind of concepts, minimal tools, minimal investment, and it gets the job done. Thanks for watching, everyone. Comment below. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one.